Good morning, Devils fans. It is our first day of on ice practice at training camp, which means we actually got some practice lines to look at and discuss. And boy, oh boy, are these ones looking hype. Um, Teams did split up into Group A, Group B, and Group C, like I said, and kind of rotate through practice throughout the day. We also get some after practice interviews that unfortunately I did not have time to watch, record this, and upload this to still get it out in the morning. So I'll be covering those tomorrow episode. And then obviously we'll get into the scrimmage throughout the weekend. But we still got our groups and the at least preliminary lines that we'll be looking at. So in Group A, the guys of note, is our top line of Bratt, Jack, and Toffoli. This one was pretty penciled in for a lot of people, myself included, especially moving Bratt back over to his natural left wing, which a lot of people forget about. That is where he started his career as a Devils left wing, but just due to need, we slotted him back over to the right, and that's where he has spent actually most of his career here. So I'm very excited to see what he does back on his natural side. And then Toffoli, the right shot, being on the right wing. I talked about it on a podcast that happened forever ago now, but Toffoli, I think, just really fills in a lot of the areas that Jack and Bratt don't normally play their style of hockey. Jack and Bratt are just, circling around the entire zone, puck carrying like crazy, zipping and zapping around, while Toffoli will play those dirty areas net front and really just scrap up anything that Jack and Bratt leave for him. Our presumptive, at least starting fourth line here, is made up of Nosek, McLeod, and Lazar as part of Group A. And then they also have Ball and Miller as their top defensive pairing. And then our depth defensive pairing of Smith and Foote. And then Vanacek starting in net. Group B, the names of note are going to be Timo, Nico, and on their wing, Alexander Holtz. That's probably a surprise for a lot of Devils fans, as all offseason Mercer has basically been penciled into that spot. But if you are in Discord with me or talk to me about Devils at all, I have been talking about Holtz starting in the top six. And some of my tinfoil cap conspiracy theories of Mercer playing on the third line. And, maybe I'll get into that more in a later video. No other real names of note there at the forward position for us, but instead defense, we've got Luke Hughes with John Marino, and then Walter Spoon and Simone Nemec, and then Monsieur Felix and Schmid starting in net there with Poultier. So the defensive pairings are quite telling. We already have Luke in the presumptive second pairing spot there with Marino, and then Walter Spoon Nemec as the top pairing for Utica. So obviously, Nemec on the outside looking in. This is his camp and preseason to force his way into the coaches, keeping him up with the big club. I definitely think it is a tough hill to climb for him, but he looked really good in the Prospect Challenge, so we'll see what he does against actual NHL competition. Group C was Andre Palat, Eric Holla, and then Dawson Mercer lining out that line with Foote, Tierney, and Clark as the outside looking in fourth liners. So that line should be quite telling as far as who actually can force their way into a starting fourth line spot or even healthy scratch versus who is going to go down to Utica. Defense there is going to be Siegenthaler and Hamilton. And then in net, we actually have Shalgren over Kincaid. Not sure how telling that is as far as who might actually be our backup. But if you go by depth spots here, it's looking like Schmid will get the start with the big club, with Shalgren down in Utica, and then Kincaid over out in Chicago. As I had talked about, he is owned over there. He does not play in Utica unless he does not play in Utica at the AHL level, but would be with us at the NHL level. So let's talk a bit more about that Holtz positioning. So I've been talking about how I think he actually would work really well with Nico and Timo. That entire line has three triggermen. Obviously, Timo, the volume shooter, Holtz more the sniper. So two big scorers on the wing there for Nico to work with. He also just put up a 30-goal season, so he is not hesitant to put the puck in the net himself. And all three guys are also really, really good playmakers. So I think that is going to be an absolute nightmare for a lot of teams to deal with. But we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, as last year we did see Holtz play on a line with Jack and Palat for basically all of training camp and preseason. And then game one of the regular season starts, and he didn't sniff the top six basically the rest of his time there. But it is still good to see him at least getting the start there with our top 6. So now Mercer is on the third line with Palat and Hala, and I think that is an absolute matchup nightmare for basically every team in the league, as that's better than a lot of teams' second lines, let alone their third lines. It's also guys that also play a very heavy grind game. They will absolutely work you into the boards. There's enough skill and playmaking between all of them to put a lot of pucks in the net. Veteran presence, young energy guy in Mercer. Yeah, I really do like that line. Keeps Holtz in the top 6. And then if I do want to touch on my tinfoil theory a little bit, it's a good negotiating tactic. I mean, Mercer put up great counting stats last year. We know that's what guys get paid off on their contracts. Putting him more in that third line role, he's not really going to get top power play time this year either. I think he could have a better playing year, but still have a counting stats decline on the year, which, you know, if you want to say Tom is using that in his negotiations, we already have word that he's trying to get Mercer on an 8-year contract, or at least long-term contract already. We'll see how that plays out for the remainder of this offseason. But usually once camp starts, contract talks cease, and then it ends up moving on into the next year. So we'll see exactly how that ends up playing out. Also, really, again, wanted to touch on it. Really like seeing Luke with Marino. I know some people were thinking maybe he would start on the third pairing, but seems like he is almost a lock already to be on that second pair. We knew Siegs and Dougie would be the top pair to start. And then Ball Miller, not too surprising, is the third pairing with Smith as the presumptive healthy scratch. And like I said, it is on Nemec to force his way in. There's one name that obviously I have not mentioned yet in these videos, and it might have stuck out to you, as Nate Bastian is injured and will not participate, at least in today's practices. We'll see how the rest of the weekend goes and as we get into the preseason. So, in his replacement, Lazar got his spot, and then Nosek is there with McLeod, who is the obvious fourth-line center for now. And yeah, to me, that really speaks volumes to Foote having to earn his spot. I know myself included, had him penciled in on the fourth line left wing. So instead, it is the coaching staff saying, hey, the vet is going to get the default here. You have to force your way into earning this role. And by the end, I think he will be starting that position come the first game of the regular season. Like I said at the top, there are interviews happening right now. There are quotes that have already come out that are really juicy and fun to talk about. But I'm going to save that for tomorrow's video, as I want to be able to actually watch the full interviews, gather my thoughts to talk about them in full. And like I said, by the time they came out, I recorded and uploaded. Would just not have had this out in time. I already delayed enough just to get these practice lines so I can talk about this for today's video. And then we're also going to get a Lindy and Tom interview today as well. So should be have a lot of content to talk about tomorrow morning before we even get into the scrimmages and such that will be happening. I'm very hopeful and very excited to see Group A go up against Group B. I mean, that's Bratt, Jack Toffoli up against Timo, Nico, Holtz. I do also think Group A's depth is a bit better, and they also have the overall... I would say Group B has the better overall defenseman, and then you got Vanacek going up against Schmid. So that should be a really, really fun matchup to watch. Group C is no slouch either, but obviously A and B is where the fun will be at. I don't believe we actually have the matchup scrimmage pairings for the weekend yet. That should maybe come out later today or at least come out tomorrow. So we'll talk about that a bit more. And then some other news that came out yesterday after my recording, or at least I forgot to touch on. Timo did switch over to number 28 from number 96. So if you weren't aware, if you already have a number 96 jersey for Timo, you can go to the Devil's Den and purchase a number 28 at a 28% discount. So not too shabby. Also, if you're one of the first, I think like 128 or some number of people to buy a number 28 Timo jersey, you will get some additional swag. I think maybe a signed puck along with some other things with that. And I think it's the first 2 weeks if you buy a number 28 Meyer jersey. I believe 28% of all those proceeds will be going to charity with Timo matching that. So you love seeing stuff like that. Timo wanted to make it as convenient for fans that already were supporting him with the number 96 to switch over to his 28. And then obviously try and get as many people in that jersey as possible with all these promotions as well. You love to see it. Timo is very invested in all this stuff, and it sounds like he is going to be really ingraining himself in the community in the coming days, weeks, months, and years, as that's something he loves to do with the team he is on. He's here for the long term. I love Timo and love everything about that coming out as well. I think that really covers it. I didn't have too many other crazy things to touch on. Really just excited that we are into training camp. We got these lines to talk about, and we're going to be getting into these scrimmages and preseason. It's everything we've been waiting for. It's finally here, everyone. Let me know what you guys think about the lines. Holtz with Nico and Timo. Mercer down on the third. Brad swapping back over to left wing. Lots to talk about, lots to think about. And we'll see how it continues to develop over the next week or so. So it is Thursday. Let's get through the end of this. Work weekends tomorrow. Scrimmages tomorrow. Scrimmages all weekend. Preseason Monday. Split squad. So much going on. So much to talk about. I'll see you all tomorrow morning to discuss it further. Always and forever, let's go Devils.